Thanks, Rachel. Great to be back here and happy to see everybody. Before we get into the weekend, did want to make everybody aware that Danielle Catino and Annie Drews are were both selected to the USA team that will play in the World Championships that are going on right now in the Netherlands. They won their first match, and today they play Canada, I think 3 o'clock our time. Obviously, no surprise for Annie to make that team. She was kind of one of the leaders on the Olympic effort that won the gold, but what an incredible accomplishment for Danielle Catino to make that team. And I'm just so happy for both of them. And they're the two opposites on that team right now, and that's the best in the country that are on that team. So excited to have two Purdue players in the World Championships, which is the biggest tournament of the year for our USA women's team. Great weekend for our volleyball team. I'm really proud of them. I'm equally as proud of what we did yesterday as what we did on Friday. I know a lot of people think that going to Iowa was going to be a walk in the park, and I can just promise you, after doing it for the 20th year, there's nothing easy about going to Iowa and expecting to beat the Hawkeyes. Jim Barnes, the new coach there, has a totally different team, with a totally different attitude, and I think Iowa is going to become a player in our league. But they were tough to handle, and I was just so proud of our team because we're not exactly 100%. I mean, teams never are, but we found out, 16 hours before the match, we weren't going to have Maddie Skimmerhorn, who's our starting libero. We knew that Meg Renner was a little sketchy after an injury the week before. She did not play on Friday, and it's kind of a tough act to go in there without your starting setter and your starting libero and try to win on the road in the Big Ten. Fortunately, Meg was able to play a little bit and did a nice job. It was great to have her back in the fold. We kind of ran a two-setter offense in that match, and that worked out pretty well. But a great crowd in here on Friday in our match. Has to be considered a monumental upset for our young team to be able to knock off Minnesota, who then turned around last night and beat Wisconsin 3-0. So, just a good confidence-building weekend for our team, which you can never have enough of those. And now this weekend we'll go to Illinois and play at Huff Hall. They're 2-0. They've beaten both Maryland and Northwestern. And Maryland and Northwestern are teams that are capable of being in the NCAA tournament, as is Illinois. And then we're here on Sunday for a matinee match against Rutgers. So, again, overall, a good start, and we just have to keep finding ways to get better. Questions?
Gotcha. I guess to start with, what's an injury update on Maddie's, her recovery? She doing all right?
You know every bit as much, well, maybe not as much as I do. I mean, you didn't maybe know she's even hurt, but she did not play, could not play on Sunday. This is Monday, and I haven't got a report so far. So we're hoping that she'll be healthy enough to play this weekend, but I actually have no idea.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm going there at Iowa on the road. Do you think that being on the road match, especially in Big Ten play, present a challenge for the team, or do they just go out there and get it done?
Oh, I can promise you anytime you go on the road in the Big Ten, it's a little bit different situation, especially if it's the first time your team does it. And we had a lot of first-timers going to Iowa and being key players on the floor. Another reason I was really happy with them. We had to make some adjustments. If Skimmerhorn doesn't play, someone else has got to play the libero position. Allie Horning got the call, and she was fantastic. It was probably, she was fantastic Friday night playing middle back. And part of my issue was, do I want to move her from where she's playing really well at middle back and push her to left back? Because it's two different positions. It's kind of like playing shortstop and second base. Okay, they look similar, but they're not. There's a lot of the responsibilities that go along with it. But we made that move because she had earned that opportunity. She wanted that opportunity to wear the other jersey, and then she was great. And that was one of the reasons that we were able to survive up there. And then the other reason was Emma Ellis. I wanted to give Maddie Chen an opportunity to start because, she was in the starting lineup, hurt her ankle, and, was out for 3 matches, and then played a little bit the previous match against Minnesota. But I wanted to give her that start and see what she could do, and she played really well in the first set. But then the team got a little stale, and we wanted to make a change, and Emma came in, and Emma had, I think, 8 kills and maybe 13 swings, so that was pretty good. So those were a couple of real highlights in that Iowa match.
Gotcha. And going back to, you said we had some first-timers on the road there in Iowa. Do you think that, not to dismiss a 19-kill performance, but do you think that had an impact on Eva's game at all? And are there some positives you can draw out of that, maybe as one of the first times we didn't rely?
I mean, what we know is that Eva's going to be double-teamed. It's kind of like throwing the ball down the post, and all of a sudden you look around and there's, watch our basketball team this year. You'll find out what's going to happen when that happens. But there's, 4 hands in her face all the time, which for a lot of people would really blow their mind. But one of the best things she does is use hands to her advantage. So that's a real blessing that she is so good at hitting balls off the hand and working the block, where a lot of people would look at those 2 big blockers in front of her and think, what am I going to do? But Eve had another good match. I mean, 19 kills in a Big Ten match is nothing to sneeze at. And so she had another good match, and she'll continue to learn what it's like to have to be a go-to player in this league. And I'm not bothered at all that we have a freshman as a go-to player because she's that good. And we would be silly not to be getting her the ball as often as we do. And I think it was a little more balanced this past Sunday. The numbers were very much, I thought, appropriate as far as who was, middles getting balls and right side players getting balls, et cetera. But she had another good match, and she continues to develop.
Gotcha. And last one for me, kind of going into Illinois. I did a light scouting report on some of their players, and what does it mean when your setter and assist leader also just is right behind and leading digs as well? Does that mean in most rotations a versatile player? She's unusual that a lot of setters just don't play great defense. They're so occupied, and their skill set is such that they want to be great as a setter, that they're not as focused or as prepared to play defense. Some are. Now and then you'll find a setter that's a great defender, just a tremendous athlete that can stay low the floor and be tuned in and has that attitude that I'm going to make plays defensively. But so often they're preoccupied with setting the ball and how they're going to, get to the ball to set it and things like that. But that's a rare situation when you have a setter that is toward the top of their team in digs. But she's an experienced setter. Diana Brown has been around for a long time, and she's a complete player. And, I would love to have our setters, dig a lot of balls as well. Thank you.
Dave, I got an email last week asking about Taylor Tremol and why she's not here, and I said, that's a question for Taylor Tremol probably more than anybody, but to get a transfer like Hannah Clayton, I know we go over this every week, and then to have Grace Valencifer, who, as you said, has started a million matches at the college level, step in, and you have a girl who hits .467 against Minnesota, and then you have Grace, who helped you come back and beat Tennessee, obviously was big in Minnesota and at Iowa. Just how valuable are those fifth-year transfers with that much playing experience to your program?
Well, first, we wouldn't be 11-1 without either one of them. It just wouldn't happen. They've helped us win. 2, they're bringing this tremendous behavior, maturity, confidence. They're outspoken in a good way to help our other players get better. They're bringing exactly what we needed for a team that didn't have a lot of playing experience. We have a lot of practice experience. We've gone over that. We're not a young team. We've got a lot of people that have been in our gym. But then you take 2 players that have started every match of their career, and they're going into their 5th year, and they come into your gym, and they're willing to take – if Hannah Clayton wasn't playing, she would still be a great leader, just like Grace. Grace hasn't played a lot. I'm not sure what her numbers are. She's probably played a lot this weekend, but prior to that, she played a match with Tennessee, and that was about it. And I told Grace, we were in a match playing somebody, Bradley or somebody, and one of my coaches said, get Grace in, get Grace in. And I told Grace after the match, I said, Grace, you're not a mop-up player. I mean, you don't need experience. We're not going to throw you into a match just to throw you into a match. We're going to play you when you're going to help us win. And I wanted to make her clear that I'm not going to be going down and tossing her into matches when we're up 25 or 23 to 12. That's not her role. Her role is to help us win. And if she's going to get called on, then she's going to help us. And she gets that. She understands that. That's the maturity that you have to have. I wish all of our players had their maturity, but they're not fifth-year players, so that it's impossible to have that. But yeah, they made a big difference on this team.
I imagine if you don't have a transfer depart that you're not looking for a middle in the transfer portal.
Absolutely. And again, and Taylor Tremel's a heck of a player. I mean, we're not happy she's gone, okay? But we are happy we have a solid replacement. And the one thing that really worked out for us was Tremol actually had 3 more years she could have played, okay? We replaced her with a 1-year player, which allowed us the opportunity to add some players in those upcoming classes. And you can imagine who they might be, okay? But it opened the door for us to attract some really good younger players.
You touched on Horning, and I think last year as a freshman, you put her into a serving role in a crucial situation, and she, ice water in her veins came through for you. Is that just the kind of player she is that, put me in whatever situation and I'll find a way to win?
She's grown up around the game. Her mom played at Indiana University. Her dad was a really successful baseball coach at Providence High School, and both of her older sisters were really good players at Providence, and both played collegiately, one of them here. So she's not rattled by a whole lot. And right now, she feels really good about herself. And last year, it was all kind of a new experience, and she didn't know what to think. And right now, she wants to lead this team, and she's just. I've not seen many players evolve in 1 year like she has. And be honest, and I said this before, we were a little surprised she didn't contribute as much last year because she was a rock star high school club player. I mean, she was the best in the state. And she was, for a kid who's going to be a backcourt player / libero in college, she was a top 20 recruit overall in the country. And now we're starting to see why.
When you train your defensive specialist, are you training them in all those positions so that if something like this happens, you can throw Ava and Emily in and have Horning switch to libero and it's almost seamless?
Yeah, they get a lot of training in all the spots, but once you start to put a lineup together, then all of a sudden they kind of get segregated to those particular positions, if that makes sense. I do feel like Ava Torrance can play middle back a little bit better than what Emily Brown does. Emily's more of a wing defender, and Ava has a little bit more range going left and right, which is what a middle back player has to do a little bit more of. Where the left back, who's usually your libero, is more of a takeover type of player. They've got to set the second ball. So there's a different skill set for kind of all those positions. But you want them to be able to play all of them. But you know that some of them are going to be a little bit better equipped to play a certain spot.
And then last thing, how instrumental was the trip to Iowa where nothing against Iowa's crowd and everything, but Huff Hall is a different environment, and it's as intimidating as it gets in the Big Ten. Just to have that road trip and kind of get a feel for some of those younger players being on the road in the Big Ten versus now going to one of the toughest environments to play in.
Yeah, I think it's really beneficial that Huff isn't your first trip. But, one of the things we really try to impress upon our players, and I think it works pretty well, there's 2 things. One, every place you go, you want to embrace that facility. You want to feel like you're fortunate to be there and find all the positives when you come in for your practice. I want our players to meet the people that are working there and be nice to them and just feel like, well, what a great opportunity this is to play here. And I got that idea from Devin Browse, who our former golf coach. I may have shared this once before. I can't remember. But I was talking about playing out at Coyote Crossing golf. And there's a couple holes out there that just eat me alive. And I was just kind of being negative about them. And Devin says, there's your problem right there. You have to love every hole. You have to, in your mind, have to appreciate playing every single hole. And he says that's what he does with his team when they go to a course. It's how much they enjoy it. And he said, you need to do the same thing when you go on the road. And so I started doing that with our team, that this is a wonderful place to play, one of the greatest facilities in the country. You need to enjoy the opportunity to be here. And then the other thing is, don't make too big of a deal about where you are. You're going to play the game inside. It's kind of like the Hoosiers thing, okay? They went out and measured the height of the basketball goal. You're going to play inside that 30 by 60 court. And you need to find a way to keep your mind inside that 30 by 60 court. You don't need to be worried about what these people are yelling. Some of these clowns in the bleachers are yelling at you, because that will happen at Huff for sure. Their job is to try to distract the players, okay? Great players feed off of that, so I don't care if they listen to it a little bit, because some of them will feed off that in a positive way. Others, they just need to focus on what's going on in the game. So those are some of the things that we try to help our players with when we go on the road.
Dave, you played a little bit of that 6-2 more out of necessity this weekend. Is that something you would do going forward?
Yeah, and it was a two-setter offense, but technically it's called a 5-2 because they're going in for each other and they're not just playing the back row. So we were playing Grace across the back row and then Meg Renner across the front row, which in theory makes some sense. When we played Minnesota, they were not taking advantage of the smaller block as much as I was concerned they might. There's some hard-hitting cross-court hitters on that team of Minnesota. And so we tried to align our block where Grace wasn't going to be a big factor. But when we started the match the other night, all of a sudden their hitters started having some success because of a smaller block. Grace is 5'8.5", and Meg's 6'2". And Meg just puts up a bigger block, at least appears to be a bigger and better block. So, and that helped us. All of a sudden, they had a left side hitter that was hitting about 400 in the first set, and then we made that change. She ended up dropping down to about 0 before the match was over because we put a bigger block up against her. But that certainly is something that we will always consider, and we thought we would. But now it's because of some things that have happened, it's just kind of played into that.
Lastly, Ravens struggled a little bit the last non-conference. She'd played well in the non-conference up until the last weekend. How did you feel like she performed this first conference
Oh,
weekend?
she was terrific against Minnesota. I mean, and Minnesota has a 6'7" middle and a 6'3" middle and a 6'4" outside and a 6'1" outside that jumps out of the gym. And she was really, really good defensively of following the game plan. We have two really mature middle blockers that have been starting for us with Clayton, who we've talked about, and Colvin, that when you give them a game plan of what they need to do, or you tell them, okay, here's the plan, but don't feel like you got to think all the time. Just understand what's going on and make adjustments and make sure your team knows what they're doing, what you're doing. They're really good at that. So it's a luxury to have those two that are they're kind of the anchor of your defense. You think your libero is, and in a way that they're certainly a leader of your defense, but the anchor is those two middle blockers that are going to be in charge of the blocking operation throughout the match.
All right, last one. You said sometimes great players feed off what they hear from the crowd. Do you hear stuff when you're on the road, individual stuff, anything that makes you laugh? Yeah.
They can't get over the fact that some coaches don't have any hair. That's the first thing they're going to come at you with, okay? They want to go that way. And after, I haven't had hair for a long time, so it really doesn't bother me that much. And my wife always tells me that it's okay you don't have any hair because you got a beautiful face. And so, now that may not be true anymore, but at one point in time she did tell me that. And so I'm sticking with that one. But I get a kick out of it, when they start to try to get on the coach. I'd rather that come to me than, go to the players. And but really in the Big Ten, it's always pretty appropriate. It's not some of the stuff that, there have been a couple places where it's gotten a little bit that way that I've been close to asking the home team, the home facilities people to look into it, but never have. It's all part of it.
We have a couple writing questions from Randy Benson.
Okay.
First off, related, even without your starting libero, your passing game looked great against Minnesota and was solid against Iowa. Is that how you saw it?
Well, we did have Maddie Skimmerhorn against Minnesota, and I thought we won the serve pass game against them, and that allowed us to have the match we did. If we don't win the serve pass match against Minnesota, we don't win. But we did. I've said all along, we have 4 tremendous ball control players. I think you guys have heard me say that, okay? Led by Skimmerhorn, and then Horning, and then, of course, the Brownie and Torrance have been really, really good. Now, when you lose one, all of a sudden there's a lot more pressure on those 3 because there's no one else over there on the bench. I mean, this year we have less backcourt players than we've ever had. We've got 4. And so it was interesting to watch when all of a sudden there's a little more pressure. When we were playing Ava a little bit out of position for the first time this year. And she started to struggle a little bit. I think might have been the first set, one of those sets. And then she regrouped, and she really came back strong for us. So we got a great group, and we did lose the serve pass game. And it wasn't because our passing was that bad. We didn't serve tough enough. And one of the things that we're going to have to really focus on every week in practice, which we have been, we have to serve tough. If that means we have to find some different people to serve, we're going to have to do that. We have to serve the ball with more velocity and take people out of what they want to do, because across the board in the Big Ten, that's what everybody's doing. They're just serving rockets over the net.
Next up, you talked a little bit about Grace Valencifer already. Can you talk about how you felt about how she stepped up against Minnesota?
Yeah, she was amazing. To find out midweek that she's going to start opening night of Big Ten play against, at that point in time, maybe ranked 6th in the country. I can't remember 6 or 8, but they're a top 5 team, talent-wise for sure. And you're going to run the show, and it was the greatest. It was like Christmas came early for her. That's why she came here for those opportunities. And we know she delivers a great ball. Her issues have nothing to do with setting the ball. She sets a great ball. The Ball State coach, Kelly Miller-Phillips, told us when she was here a couple weeks ago that in the MAC conference that Grace Valencifer was the best setter in the conference. So we know we've got a really good setter. But she has to survive blocking at the net. She has to make defensive plays. She has to serve tough. She runs the team. She has the swagger to run the team and to compete. But there are some things she needs to continue to improve on. Was I surprised that she did as well as she did? A little bit. I was surprised with the whole night on Friday. I mean, I felt like we could compete with them. I felt like we had a match in us that could win. But we played beyond my expectations on Friday night.
Lastly, what sets this team apart from previous years and your teams that you've had coming before this with an 11-1 start?
Well, I mean, every team's different. I mean, there are a lot of teams that we've had that could be 11-1 right now, but we've had some really good teams with a lot of experience. What's different about this team is nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw this team 11-1 right now. And so for right now, that's great. We're 11-1, and we can feel good about that. But we have to continue to get better, and that's the one thing I felt like this team from the very beginning will do is we're going to get better. We got a lot of people that will benefit from the experience, will benefit from the training. I keep going back to Rastovsky and Lourdes Myers. Emily Rastovsky and Lourdes Myers, both redshirt freshmen. Nobody has seen them, okay, unless they've been watching real close. And they're going to be really good players in our program. It's just difficult. We got back, and you were there. We got back from on the flight yesterday, and I talked to our team how hard it is as a coach not to be able to play people as much as they'd like to play. But you just can't do that. I mean, Mike Bobinski's writing a check. He's not actually writing the check, I don't think. But I'm being paid to win. Our team is supposed to win as many as we can. So trust that I'm going to put the lineup on the floor that's going to allow us to win. And if we can get opportunities to play people, we will. But, this is the Big Ten Conference. It's the best volleyball conference for college women in the world. And so, you may have to wait your time and look at Chen and look at Ellis and look at Cook, okay? All 3 of them. They paid their dues. And they're going to be better off because of it. They didn't leave. They're still here. And they're helping us have this really good start. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.